actually with that, don't rush it or don't try to rush it. That's something that I
That
see
would
a
be
lot
me.
of people, and same here, because we want to feel amazing
Yes.
today or yesterday,
Right.
or we want to have all our problems resolved within ourselves, literally like yesterday. With that not rushing piece, as you said, focus one day at a time, especially with some things that you might want to do or start to work on. If you now think about, oh my gosh, how far I am from where I want to be, like how motivating is that to show up today and do what you're supposed to do, because you're like, there's so much ahead of me. But one thing that can help, which is something that we discussed when you were on my podcast, is that, and a lot of times we don't even know how that looks like, that future that we want to have, because you have never felt it. You have
Right.
gone through
Right.
trauma. You don't even know
Mhm.
how it feels not to be triggered, not to be on
Right.
alert all the time. So what
Exactly.
you can do is you can focus on just going as far away from where you are now as you can.
Mhm.
That's it.
Mhm.
Just one step at a time, one day at a time. You're moving away from that painful place that you are. And it doesn't mean that you're now jumping like leaps at a time. There might be times when there's a huge leap and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa. But then you get back down on earth and you're like, shit, there's 20 more things to
All
work
these
on.
other steps.
Yeah. And with that, I know that it was this for me, I would just beat myself up for like, oh, I'm working so hard and there's still this. But I
Yeah.
would disregard the fact that I resolved that. I resolved that. I keep showing up. I keep working and putting time in myself, effort in myself. And it's
Hmm.
like we don't give ourselves enough credit for even wanting to do the work, not even talking about doing the work. Because, and that's something that I had a call with somebody who reminded me that he was like, because I said, and we talked about this before, I'm like, I'm just Austra, I'm just like normal person, right? um and he said me like, in you showing up for yourself for like 12 plus years, putting in work on yourself, literally like I've been working on myself, my self-development full time pretty much all these years.
Hmm.
That's not like nothing special. And I was like, huh, interesting perspective. And many times we really define things like, what is it, even like what is something special, like
Yeah.
is you being completely free something special, or it's actually you showing up every single day and putting in the work. That by itself, it's so special, it's so
Hmm.
powerful, because at any given day you could have made a decision not to show up today,
That's
and you
right.
still make decision to show up.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And on that, the other thing that I want to say about that too is don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare your growth, your
Yeah.
healing to others. It's so easy to do. Everybody's journey is custom. Remember that. No two journeys are the same. There can be similarities, but they're not going to be the same.
And they don't
And
show you
so,
the real journey anyways.
right, they show you a little snippet of that journey.
Yeah.
And so
Positive snippet.
yeah, the positive, right? They're not showing you when they're crying in bed and they can't get out of bed for that day or whatever. But compare yourself. Like you were saying earlier, you can go back to your journals and you can, if you're like, I'm not feeling like I'm growing or whatever, or you start comparing yourself to others, only compare yourself to yourself. Go back, think about where you were a year ago, 6 months ago, 5 years ago. Are you that same person? I mean, I can't remember all the details of mine, but if I think back, I can tell you like the biggest part of my growth has been over the last 10 years, for sure. And I can tell you, I can think back where I was 10 years ago and where I am today. It's vastly different.
Yeah. And that growth wouldn't have happened if you didn't start at 19 years old.
Right. Right. Yeah. And there wasn't stuff out there at 19 years old,
Yeah.
it was a really long journey. And for many years too, I was in survival mode and didn't even realize it. And survival mode is not a healthy place at all.
Yeah. But even going through that, I think it's something that a lot of times we feel like we don't want to have that, which completely understand, makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But at the same time, it's similar to we all want to show up perfect, but it's like it doesn't
Yeah,
make you relatable. It doesn't make you human.
exactly.
What makes
I
you
can't relate.
human is messing up or
Right.
just being broken in certain areas and working towards healing them or changing them, improving them. Like, believe it or not, we all are like that. We think that everybody around us is like super perfect beings, but they're not. Like,
No.
we all have our own demons. We all have things that we need to work on, and we
Mhm.
all are trying to hide them as well at times. But if you think about it, we all have them. And in a
Mhm.
way, that's something that I don't know if it's a popular opinion, but um, it's something that I think if we now think that I'm this special person with this like trauma and this and that, it can get in your way of growth.
Yeah, it
Because now
can.
you start to use that to entitle yourself as this big traumatized person.
Mhm.
Um, and even though maybe somebody listening might not like to hear this, but it's something that we look for people who might have gone through similar stories and or experiences, things like that, just to give yourself hope. Because sometimes when we
Mhm.
think that we're the only ones, we get in a hopeless place that you feel like
Yes.
I can't get out of this place. But then if
Yes.
you, and I have had several people tell me not only about when it comes to healing, but growth, like, oh, I'm too old to do this and that. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go and find 10 people who started business after they were like 40 or 50, or started to dance when they were like 50 years old.
Mhm.
And I will show you that what you just said, they proved not to be true. So
Correct.
sometimes it's helpful for us to look for other people who have gone through, and I think this podcast is a great resource for that, who have
Mhm.
gone through like similar experiences or journeys, and through their stories, you can get hope in your own journey.
Yes.
As
Yes.
long as you
Yeah.
don't feel like, oh, but they are different.
Right,
And
they're special. They, that's for them. And
yeah.
and I go back to when I did the workshop, and the first night of the workshop, the childhood abuse healing workshop, we would have the women tell one quick story of their abuse. And what that did was create a connection. And for so many of them, they had never shared their story, or very seldom shared their story, because there's a lot of shame. And when you're sitting there, and I remember when I went through the workshop, there was a lot in my workshop. There was 25 women when I went through it. And it was interesting to sit there and go, I can completely relate to that. Somebody else felt like that. Oh my gosh. All of a sudden, I'm not this, because I felt like a freak. I felt like I was the only person in the world
Yeah.
that felt like that and had these emotions and feelings and dealt with the stuff that I did in my head. All of a sudden, it's not just me. And actually,
Yeah.
there were women there that had it even worse than me. Not that I was downplaying
Yeah.
mine, but it was like, okay, so there is more out there, and it creates a connection, and all of a sudden you're not alone anymore.
Yeah.
And that
And that's
shame
huge.
goes down. It's huge. That's huge.
That not sense of you're not alone, you're not the only one. And also with that, you get a sense that it's okay. We're in
Yeah.
this together,
Yeah.
hand in hand,
Yep. Hand
walking
in
this
hand.
journey.
Yeah.
But it's something, I think it also, in a way, gives you permission to walk that path. And
Yeah.
because you see that somebody else is doing it, and you're like, well, they had similar to me, maybe even worse. I might as well try and take the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The one thing I was going to say when you're talking about perfection too, and you'll completely be able to identify with this, is that when you drop that perfectionism, there is such freedom in your life.
yeah,
Whew, it is such a relief when you drop that perfectionism, and you're like, I don't know, it makes your life so much easier.
yeah.
I can't, I mean, so many things go through my head, of how much easier my life is when I drop that. And it was a facade for me, because
What
inside
helped
was
you
a
to drop
mess.
it?
I got tired of it. It's exhausting. And I realized that the one thing I realized is I was doing it for me. I was doing it to hide all the stuff that was going on inside of
Mm,
me. That's what I was doing. If I make the outside and everything around me look good, people won't see what's going on the inside. That's not true. They know there's something going on. And as I started to heal, I realized what I was doing. I realized how exhausting it was. And I realized how foolish it was, that I wasn't fooling anybody, including myself. And so I started to drop it, and I'm still dropping it because it's still in my life, and I still catch myself wanting to do that. Like with this podcast, you've helped me with it, and I'm changing it and changing it because I'm trying to find it. But at first I was like, oh, I can't do it until I do this, and I can't do it until I do. No, because that's not helping people. This is helping people actually doing it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's something that, believe it or not, it will never be perfect.
It's not. We're human beings. It's just not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And
we
it's
have
hard to
this-
relate to perfectionism.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's so relatable. Like,
I know.
it's so weird how it works, because I know that for me, I wonder what helped me. I would have to think about it. What helped me to make that shift? Because and that's, we most likely will talk about it from healing to growth in the next conversation.
Mhm.
But one thing that I know that really helped me to start to change things and accelerate my growth was letting go of that perfectionism, and be okay with things not being perfect. But I think one of the things that helped with that was letting go the meaning of that. That if you're not perfect, it doesn't mean you're this and that.
Right. It's not an identity.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of started to even look for opportunities to do something where I know it won't be perfect. Like I did with my challenge, or several other things that I have been, even now preparing for marathon. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm like, we'll see where it takes us. So far, so good. But it's something that that perfectionism most likely wouldn't even allow me to make certain decisions. I would just postpone them. And it's something, I think big thing was that meaning that I would attach, and also what others would think, because if you're not perfect, they must think that you're a mess up or you're whatever, failure, and all that kind of stuff, and we don't want to be rejected by others. And I think with this, actually really important point that can be helpful towards slowly moving towards a sense of being healed, or more towards being ready for growth element of your journey, is that sense of confidence in yourself. Because when it comes to other people's opinions, the less you believe in yourself, the more they matter.
Yes. Say that again. Say it again.
So the less you believe in yourself and the less confidence you have within yourself, the more you value other people's opinions.
Oh, so true. 100%. 100%. And I used to proudly say I'm a chameleon, because I would adjust myself to people because I wanted to be accepted. And I completely lost myself. I've been just rediscovering myself over the last 7 years.